There are big changes coming to flood insurance from FEMA. Basically, the current flood system hasn't been updated since the 70s. These are some things that you need to know. Hey y'all, I know it's not the most exciting topic, but I'm here to talk to you about flood insurance. I, of course, am Melanie Beran with Wyatt Properties, myhomeinhouston.com, and I am, well, I was going to say thrilled to be talking to you about this, but flood insurance isn't thrilling, right? Like, let's just be honest. But it's important information that you need to know, that your real estate agent needs to know, that your insurance people need to be able to talk you through. So if you are looking to buy or sell, make sure that you go ahead and hit subscribe and tap the notification bell so that you get information just like this that you need on your real estate journey. Now, let's talk flood insurance. The way things currently are basically doesn't take into account how much the home is worth. It gives you these zones and nothing is independently evaluated, and depending on what letter zone you live in, you may or may not be required to buy flood insurance. It will affect the price of your flood insurance, all of these things. Now, first, a couple things get out of the way. This video is just educational. You need to make sure that you talk to your trusted insurance provider. I am not an insurance provider, but I am a real estate agent who knows some things about living on the Gulf Coast, because I've lived here my whole life. So I've lived through Allison and Ike and Harvey and all the things. Flood insurance is oddly near and dear to my heart. The other disclaimer is, like, no one can predict a hurricane. Harvey dumped 55 inches of rain in Friendswood. Nobody could have predicted that. Homes that were nowhere near a flood zone were flooded. So make sure that you consider getting flood insurance if you live in the Gulf Coast, no matter what. Gulf Coast, always going to be a risk for flooding. That's just one of the things about living here, this place that I love. So, not an insurance agent, consider flood insurance. Those are your disclaimers, don't sue me later. Talking about what we are talking about today is the new FEMA things that are going to come out starting in either October or next year, depending on a couple, like where you fall on the spectrum. But it is called Risk Rating 2.0. What it does is it takes into account your individual home and then gives you a flood rate, a flood insurance cost based on that. Basically, the current flood system hasn't been updated since the 70s. And there are a lot of things that have changed since the 70s, including the technology that they use to evaluate this kind of thing. So it's time to update. It hasn't been updated in like 50 years. So they're updating it, and these are going to be some of the changes. They're going to base your flood insurance on the value of your individual home and your individual home's risk. Using the current method that they're going to toss out, your flood insurance increases an average of $8 per year. The lowest flood insurance costs like around $550 a year, and then if you're in a flood zone, yours is higher than that. The average flood insurance goes up about $8 a year. Based on this new rating system, where they are individually considering the cost of your home, they say 96% of homeowners, of current policy owners, right? Because everybody doesn't have a policy. Depending on your flood zone, you may not have a policy. But current policy holders will see an immediate decrease or an increase of $20 or less per month. 96% of people are either going to see it go down or going to see it increase less than $20 a month. So it's going to be, less than $240 a year. Not awesome, but that's it. And then that small percentage, right? So there's 4% less. 4% of current policy owners are going to see an increase of over $20 a month or over $240 a year. So if you currently have a policy, you're going to want to pay attention to these changes. If you're buying a home, this is just going to be, living in Houston and living in, Harris County or Brazoria County or whatever. You got your city tax, you got your school district tax. You may have a college tax, like we live in San Jacinto College District. You might have a property improvement district or your MUD tax, and then you're going to have your flood insurance. Like, there's a lot of moving pieces. That's why it's really recommended that you work with a great realtor and a great lender to help you keep all those pieces together. But this flood insurance piece is going to be another piece for you to consider. And if you are looking at buying a home in a flood zone, the cost of flood insurance could limit, like, you may be get approved for $225,000 here, but if you come over here that's in a flood zone, your home approval amount might be less because your lender is going to know that you're also going to be required to pay that flood insurance. So it's something to keep an eye on, whether you currently own a home or whether you are looking to buy a home sometime soon, that this new flood system and this new rating system is going to go into effect. And they say 96% will see an increase of less than $250 a month or $240 a year. $250 a month, that wasn't accurate at all. Most people will see a decrease or an increase of less than $20 a month. But when they break it out, 23% of current policy owners will see it go down. So that's good, right? If you live in an area where the home values are not as high, you actually could see yours go down, because the policies are now also, the policy cost is now going to be based on partly on your home's value. 66% of people, so over half of people, are going to see an increase between $0 and $10. So again, that's going to be like $120 a month, not optimal, but 66%, 2/3 of people who currently own a policy, are going to see what they would consider to be a minimal impact. And then 7% are going to see between $10 and $20 a month increase, and then that 4% of people are going to see it go up quite a bit. So why is this happening? Well, over the past 50 years, FEMA has collected $60 billion in premiums, and they've paid out $96 billion. So again, when you think about these huge events that we've had, even just here in the Gulf Coast, we've had Harvey, we've had Ike. Allison was not a hurricane, but in a lot of ways it treated Houston real bad anyways. Ida has just recently happened in Louisiana. They had Laura last year. So when you think about all of the major storms they've had to pay out, they have lost $36 billion. They're at a $36 billion deficit because they're paying out more because home values are going up, but the premiums are not keeping up with that pace. So by making sure that your rate is also tied to your home's value, they're going to be able to better compensate those of, no matter what your home's value is, they're going to be able to better appropriately compensate whatever your losses are. So basically, they've paid out they've collected $60 billion in premiums, but they have paid out $96 billion in claims, and that's not serving the taxpayers well when taxpayers as a whole are paying part of this thing. So they've paid out more than they've taken in. That's a bad business model. Anyone can recognize that, whether it's a government agency or a regular business. So they've got to make some of these changes. So when do the changes go into effect? If you're buying a home right now, you'll still be under the lower cost and you'll have that premium for the year. But if you buy after October 1st, 2020, if you buy after October 1st, 2021, you'll be under the risk rating 2.0 system. If you currently have flood insurance, then you will be going to that in all policies renewing on or after April 1st, 2022. So that's something to keep in mind. Everybody's changing. Now, if you are a current policy owner, your rate increase is capped at 18% a year, and this is not going to go above and beyond that because it's against the law. But just know that if you have a current rate, like our neighbors that are grandfathered at in the low 500s, they're going to be experiencing whatever the change is. They don't get grandfathered in because they already have a policy. So just know, if you have a policy, this still applies to you. Flood insurance, it's not awesome and it's not exciting, but it's something that you need to consider if you're buying a home here in the Gulf Coast or anywhere that you have a risk of flooding. I hope this information was helpful to you. Just know that the vast majority of people are not going to see a rate increase, could see a decrease, or you're not going to see an increase greater than $20 a month. A very, very small percentage are going to see an increase of more than that. But your flood insurance rate is going to be based on your home's risk and also your home's individual rating. So everyone's flood insurance is going to cost just a little bit differently, and it'll be interesting to see how they get these values. My inkling is it's going to come from the local property tax assessors, which also means it's going to be important for you to make sure that you're watching your property tax value and protesting that when appropriate. But yeah, this was a lot. I love policies. I love government documents. So if you have questions about it, make sure that you go ahead and leave me a question, leave me a comment. I'm happy to help. I have lived on the Gulf Coast my entire life, and hurricanes are just a way of life here. So I am Melanie Beran with Wyatt Properties. I hope something really great happens to you today.